The night was quiet outside. Rain touched the window in slow drops, and the street looked peaceful under the yellow lamps. Inside my house I stood by the sink with a warm mug in my hands. The tea had gone cold, but I kept holding it because it gave me something to do with my shaking fingers. My eyes were swollen from crying. My name is Rachel Hart. I'm 31 years old and I live in Eugene, Oregon. From the outside my life looks good. I have a husband who takes care of me. We live in a small blue house with flowers in the yard. Neighbors wave when we walk outside. People at work say I am lucky. They don't see the truth I hide inside. I have learned how to smile when I need to. I laugh at the right time. I cook dinner, wash the dishes, and fold laundry. I do all the things a wife should do. But when the house grows quiet and no one is watching me, the mask slips off. I feel empty, like my heart has closed its doors. I often sit by the window at night watching the rain fall on the glass, and wonder why my life feels so heavy when it looks so perfect. Sometimes I ask myself if I am broken. Maybe other women find joy in these things. Love, safety, a steady home. Maybe I should too. But the truth is, I feel like a stranger in my own story. Last night was one of the hardest. I walked to the front door with my bag in hand. I had rehearsed in my mind what I would do. I would leave quietly, without a note, without a fight. I thought about driving to my friend Ava's apartment and asking her to let me sleep on the couch. I thought about freedom, about silence, about breathing again. But then I heard his voice. Jacob, my husband, called my name from the living room. He didn't sound angry. He sounded gentle, almost careful, as if he knew I was standing there ready to go. I froze in the hallway, my hand gripping the doorknob so tight that my fingers turned white. When I turned around, he was sitting on the couch with a notebook in his hands. He looked up at me with tired eyes and asked something simple, something small. But that question cut through me deeper than any fight could. Last night I almost left. But then he asked something that changed everything. The morning after that night looked normal, almost peaceful. The sun came in through the curtains, soft and gold, like nothing was wrong at all. Jacob was already in the kitchen making coffee. The smell filled the air, warm and familiar. I walked in, gave him a small smile, and he kissed my forehead. To anyone watching, it would have looked like the picture of love. I sat at the table while he packed his lunch for work. He asked me if I wanted toast, and I nodded, though I wasn't hungry. I stared at the mug in front of me, the steam curling up into the air. I thought about how many mornings had been just like this one. Calm, ordinary, good. And yet, inside I felt like I was behind glass. I could see the life, touch the routine, but not feel it. When Jacob kissed me goodbye and said, "See you tonight, love," I whispered back the words he wanted to hear. "See you tonight." The lie slipped out so easily that sometimes I wondered if it had become part of my blood. That afternoon I cleaned the house the way I always did. I folded the laundry and lined up his shirts by color. I watered the plants and checked the mail. On the outside my life was tidy. But inside my heart was silent. I wanted to scream just to see if I still had a voice, but instead I wiped the kitchen counters until they shone. That evening Jacob came home with a smile on his face. He brought a bouquet of flowers. Daisies, my favorite. I thanked him, kissed his cheek, and placed them in a vase. He seemed so happy, so sure that this was enough. But as I arranged the flowers, I wondered why beauty no longer touched me the way it once did. Later, while we ate dinner, Jacob began to talk about the future. He spoke with excitement, his eyes bright. "I've been thinking," he said, cutting into his food. "Maybe this summer we could start a family. We could begin planning, maybe even buy a bigger car. What do you think?" My fork froze in my hand. My lips curled into a polite smile, but my chest filled with panic. Start a family? Baby? The words echoed in my head like a drum. I wanted to feel joy. I wanted to meet his hope with my own. But all I felt was a wave of fear so heavy I could barely breathe. I forced myself to nod. "Maybe," I said softly. "We'll see." His smile grew even wider, as if I had said yes. He reached across the table and held my hand. His fingers were warm, steady, kind. I wanted to pull away, but instead I let him hold me, and I pretended again. Later that night, as I hung his coat in the closet, something slipped from the pocket and hit the floor. It was a small notebook, black and worn at the edges. Curious, I picked it up and flipped it open. My eyes scanned the pages and my breath caught. Inside were lists, baby names, nursery paint colors, saving goals for doctor visits and cribs. He had been planning, dreaming, building a future that he thought we both wanted. I sank onto the edge of the bed, the notebook trembling in my hands. His handwriting was neat, full of love and care. But to me the words felt like chains. Each baby name was another stone pressing against my chest. When Jacob came into the room, I quickly closed the notebook and slipped it back into the coat. He didn't notice. He was humming as he changed his clothes, talking about a surprise he had planned for the weekend. "I made us a dinner reservation," he said, smiling. "Somewhere special. I thought it would be nice to celebrate the new chapter we're about to start." I swallowed hard, forcing another smile. "That's nice," I whispered. Inside my heart was falling apart. How could I tell him the truth? That I wasn't ready, that I wasn't even sure I loved the life we had built? That every kiss, every gift, every gentle touch made me feel like I was drowning in a beautiful prison? That night, I lay awake long after he fell asleep. His arm was draped across me, heavy and warm. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the sound of his breathing. I wanted to love him the way he deserved. I wanted to feel what he felt. But the harder I tried, the more my heart shut down. My life looked perfect on the outside. But inside I was breaking in silence. And then the next morning, as I picked up his jacket to hang it again, my hands started to tremble. My fingers brushed the notebook still hidden inside. I felt like I was holding proof of the life he wanted, a life I could never give. He made me dinner. I said thank you. Then I opened his jacket again, and my hands started shaking. The jacket still hung heavy in my hands. I pressed my face against it for a second, trying to calm myself. That was when the scent hit me, cedar. It wasn't the smell of Jacob's cologne. It was something else. Something old. Something I hadn't felt in years. My chest tightened. That scent pulled me back to another life, another time, another man. His name was Ben. I met him when I was 25. He was older than me, but only by a year. He had messy hair, the kind that always looked like he had just run his hands through it, and a laugh that filled every corner of a room. He wasn't safe like Jacob. He wasn't steady. But he was alive in a way that made me believe I was too. Back then I thought Ben was my forever. He made me feel like I was seen, truly seen. We'd go hiking on weekends, staying out until dark, sitting on cliffs with our legs hanging over the edge. He'd talk about traveling the world, about living free, about chasing the sun. And I believed him. I believed us. But Ben's love came like fire, warm, bright, and dangerous. One night he promised he'd never leave me. The next week he was gone. No warning. No goodbye. Just silence. I remember the night clearly. I sat in my car outside his apartment, waiting for him to come home. Hours passed. My calls went straight to voicemail. Finally, his neighbor told me he had moved out that morning. Packed up, disappeared. Just like that. I went home and recorded a voice memo on my phone, crying into the speaker because I had no one else to tell. "He left me," I whispered into the dark. He really left me. For weeks I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Every sound felt like it could be him coming back. But he never did. That's when Jacob entered my life. He wasn't wild. He wasn't fire. He was calm water, soft hands, steady eyes. He listened when I spoke. He didn't make promises he couldn't keep. I thought maybe this was what I needed. Stability. Safety. A man who would stay no matter what. So I said yes to Jacob when he asked me to marry him. I said yes even though my heart was still bleeding. I thought time would heal me. I thought marriage would be the bandage. But the truth is I never healed. I just learned how to cover the wound. For years I buried Ben deep inside me, pretending he was gone. Pretending I had moved on. But the scent of cedar brought him back like a ghost, standing in the room with me. That night I tried to shake the memory away. I closed the closet, crawled into bed, and told myself I was fine. But my phone buzzed on the nightstand. At first I ignored it. But then curiosity won. I picked it up and saw a message from an unknown number. It said, "I'm back in town. I'm sorry." My stomach dropped. My hands went cold. I didn't need to ask who it was. I knew. Ben. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours. A part of me wanted to throw the phone against the wall. Another part wanted to write back instantly. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't open that door again. With shaking hands, I deleted the message. Still, the words echoed in my mind all night. I'm back in town. I'm sorry. For days, I carried that ghost with me everywhere. When Jacob kissed me goodnight, I thought about Ben's kiss. When Jacob laughed, I heard Ben's laugh. When Jacob spoke of the future, I remembered the future Ben once painted for me. The travels, the sunsets, the freedom. But I reminded myself of the truth. Ben had left. Jacob had stayed. Ben was a ghost. Jacob was real. So why did my heart still ache for what was gone? One afternoon, I was cleaning the living room when I found something I hadn't seen in years. An old voice memo saved on my phone. The one I had recorded the night Ben disappeared. Out of curiosity, I pressed play. The sound of my younger self crying filled the room. My voice shook as I whispered into the speaker. He left me. He really left me. I dropped the phone on the couch, unable to listen. Tears filled my eyes. I realized then that I had never told Jacob about Ben. Not the whole story. He knew I had dated someone before, but he didn't know how deep it went, how much of me had been left behind that night. That evening, Jacob surprised me with another plan. He said one of his co-workers had told him about a prenatal class. Just for someday, he said with a smile. We don't have to rush, but maybe we could go together. Learn early. His eyes were full of hope. Mine were full of fear. I excused myself, saying I needed the bathroom. I locked the door, sat on the edge of the tub and pressed my hands against my chest. My heart was racing so fast I thought it might burst. How could I sit in a class about babies when I couldn't even sit in my own marriage without shaking? That night, while Jacob slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling again. The ghost of Ben hovered over me, his words playing on repeat in my mind. I'm back in town. I'm sorry. I turned to look at Jacob. His face was peaceful in sleep, his hand resting on my arm. He was here. He was real. He had stayed. But all I could think about was the man who hadn't. I wanted to scream. I wanted to confess everything. But instead I lay there in silence, trapped between two lives. The safe one I chose and the broken one I never let go of. The next morning I opened my phone and checked the deleted messages folder. The text was still there waiting. I stared at it until my eyes blurred. My finger hovered over the permanently delete button, but I couldn't press it. It felt like pressing it would erase the only proof that Ben had come back, that I wasn't crazy, that the past hadn't been just a dream. So I kept it there, hidden but alive. A ghost in my pocket. And when Jacob kissed my cheek before leaving for work, I smiled and pretended again. But inside my whole world was shaking. I buried the past. Until it texted me again after 4 years of silence. For a few days I tried to live like nothing had changed. I woke up, made coffee, packed Jacob's lunch and smiled when he came into the kitchen. I asked about his patients. He asked about my day at the school office. We stood side by side at the sink and washed dishes, our shoulders touching. From the outside it looked normal. From the inside it felt like I was acting in a quiet play where I did not know my lines. At work I answered emails and printed papers for teachers. I smiled at the students when they came to the desk to ask for help. I was calm, polite, steady. When I sat down I felt the chair under me. When I stood up I felt the ground. But inside my chest there was nothing. No spark. No voice. Just a soft, heavy silence that did not move. I told myself I could fix this if I tried harder. I cooked a special dinner one night. Roasted chicken, potatoes, green beans. I set the table with our wedding glasses and a small candle. Jacob looked at the meal and smiled big. This is beautiful, he said. He kissed my cheek. His kiss was warm. It landed on my skin and stayed there like a small light. But the light did not enter me. We ate and talked about little things. He told me a funny story from the hospital. I laughed at the right time. I asked good questions. I kept my voice soft. When he looked happy I felt a small relief. Maybe I could keep us safe like this. Maybe I could hold the house together with good meals and a steady tone. Later that night, after Jacob fell asleep, I lay awake in the dark. I took my phone and opened the voice recorder. I spoke in a whisper so he would not wake up. I don't know how to love the right way, I said. I want to be the wife he needs. I keep pretending I am fine, but I am not. I am scared. I am tired. I feel like I am living two lives. I don't want to hurt him. I don't want to hurt me. I saved the file and put the phone down. As I turned my head on the pillow, I saw Jacob's eyes open in the dark. He had not been asleep. Our faces were close. He did not speak. He just looked at me for a long second, then closed his eyes again. The room felt like it was holding its breath. The next day I met my friend Ava at a small cafe near the river. The place had big windows and plants in the corners. We sat by the glass and watched the water move. I tried to talk about work, about the weather, about a new book. She listened, then put her cup down and leaned forward. "Rachel," she said, "you sound far away." "I'm fine," I said quickly. My voice sounded thin. She looked at me for a long time. "You don't have to be fine with me." Tears rose fast and I wiped them away before they could fall. "I don't know what is wrong with me," I said. "My life is good. Jacob is kind. Our home is safe. But my chest feels empty. Sometimes I think I am the problem." "You are not a problem," she said. "You are a person. Something hurt you and you did not heal." "I tried to," I whispered. "I tried to heal by moving forward." "Moving forward is not the same as healing," she said softly. I told her I had gotten a message from Ben. I told her I deleted it, then checked the deleted folder again. I told her about Jacob's baby plans and the notebook in the coat. I told her I could not breathe in the baby aisle at the store. I told her I spoke into my phone at night because I could not say the words out loud. Ava covered my hand with hers. "You look like someone carrying a love that isn't yours anymore," she said. Her voice was kind, not sharp. "You are carrying it because you think you must. But you don't." I wanted to argue. I wanted to say I should be strong and keep going. But I could not. The words would not come. When I went home I found Jacob in the living room reading. He looked up, smiled, and asked if I wanted to walk to the park. I said yes. We walked under the tall trees where the path turns along the creek. The air was cool and green. He reached for my hand. I let him hold it. For a while the quiet felt almost safe. Halfway down the path he said, "Maybe we should take a weekend trip. Just the two of us. No work. No plans. We could go to the coast. Watch the waves. Or not talk. Whatever you want." I looked at the water. I wanted that kind of rest. But I also felt a fear of being alone with him and the truth. "I have some extra hours at the office," I said. "Maybe next month." He nodded and did not push. He squeezed my hand once, gentle. We walked back home with the sun low in the sky. The porch lights on our street were already shining. Our little blue house looked soft and kind as we came up the steps. That night when I went to hang his jacket, my fingers found the small black notebook again. I held it but did not open it. I put it back fast like the paper could burn me. I stood in the dark closet with the door open and tried to breathe slow. The next afternoon I had to buy milk. I stopped at the grocery store after work. I turned into the baby aisle by mistake. There were tiny socks and soft blankets and small bottles with stars on them. My heart started to race. The floor felt like it moved under me. I grabbed the edge of the shelf and bent my head down. A woman near me asked, "Are you okay?" I nodded, but I was not. I left the cart and walked to the bathroom. I sat in a stall until my hands stopped shaking. Back home I opened my phone and scrolled to the deleted messages folder. The old text from Ben was still there. "I'm back in town. I'm sorry." I stared at it for a long time. My finger hovered over the options. I chose block. My hand shook, but I did it. I blocked the number. I told myself this was a small step. I told myself I could let go of a ghost. That evening the house was quiet. Jacob was late after a long shift. I made tea and sat at the kitchen table. The clock ticked. The fridge hummed. I felt the same old silence around me, the kind that sits on your shoulders and makes your back bend. When Jacob came in, he put his bag down and smiled with tired eyes. "Hi, love," he said. He took off his shoes, then reached into his pocket and placed a small envelope on the table. "What is this?" I asked. "Just something for you," he said. "Open it." Inside was a folded paper. At the top he had written savings plan. There were lines and dates and numbers, but not the kind I feared. Not baby things. Not paint colors. Not doctor visits. The list said, first month's rent cushion. Therapy sessions. Time off work if needed. A new lock for your new door if you move out. I looked up fast. My throat closed. Jacob. He raised his hands quickly. I'm not pushing you away, he said. I want you safe. I want you to have space if you need it. I want you to choose your life, not trap yourself in it. Whatever you need to feel safe, we will do. If that means you stay, we will learn how to stay. If that means you go, I will help you go. He had written one line at the bottom. Whatever she needs to feel safe. I pressed the paper to my chest. I felt both seen and broken. Why are you being so kind? I asked. My voice was dry and small. Because I love you, he said. And because I can feel you pulling away even when you try to stand still. I could not speak. We sat at the table with the envelope between us. The room was quiet. Not angry. Not cold. Just sad and clear like the air after rain. For the next week I did small things to care for myself. I walked each morning before work. I wrote 3 pages in a notebook every night. I turned off my phone early. When I cried, I let it happen without hiding in the bathroom. I told Ava I was trying to be honest. She sent me short messages. Breathe. You're not alone. One evening I stood in the doorway and watched Jacob read on the couch. He looked up and smiled. I felt a rush of love for the good man he was, and at the same time I felt the same old wall inside me. Love for his goodness did not open the closed doors in my chest. It hurt to know that. I sat beside him. I blocked the number, I said. He nodded. Thank you for telling me. I don't want the past to keep walking into our home, I said. It already did, he said softly. But we can choose what happens now. We were quiet again. The silence was different. It was not the heavy fake silence. It was honest. It made space for truth to come in even if it hurt. 2 nights later I recorded another voice note. I did not whisper this time. I spoke slowly with the door open and the light on. I am scared to lose the life I built, I said, and I am scared to live it too. I want to feel real. I want to stop pretending. When I stopped the recording, I turned and saw Jacob in the hallway. He had heard me. He placed his hand on the doorframe and said, "Thank you." I nodded. Tears slid down my face. I don't know what to do. We can figure it out, he said. We don't have to fix it tonight. That weekend he asked again about the coast. I almost said no. Then I said, maybe tomorrow, just a drive. No hotel. No big plan. We drove to the ocean and watched the waves crash and pull back. We did not talk much. We held warm cups from a small cafe and stood side by side. The air smelled like salt and wind. I let the loud water fill me even for a minute. On the drive back I leaned my head on the window and closed my eyes. I was not healed, but I was not numb in that moment. That felt like a small mercy. Back home I opened my journal. I wrote, I don't want to build a life from fear. I want to build it from truth, even if the truth breaks the old shape. Later that night I met Ava for a quick walk. She looked at my face and nodded like she could read a new line there. We stopped under a street light. The leaves moved above us in the soft wind. I told Jacob more, I said. I blocked the number. I'm trying to be honest. Ava squeezed my arm. Good, she said. You look different. How? I asked. Like someone who just put down something heavy. I breathed out. The breath felt longer than usual, like it went all the way to my feet. We reached the corner where we always said goodbye. She turned to me and held my gaze. Her voice was gentle, but the words were firm, the way truth often is when it is also kind. She said I looked like someone carrying a love that wasn't mine. That's when I stopped pretending. The week after our trip to the coast, the air in the house felt different. It wasn't heavy in the same way as before. It wasn't silent from pretending. It was silent in a waiting way, like the whole house knew a storm was close but had not broken yet. I could feel Jacob watching me more closely. Not in a cruel way. Not in anger. Just in the way someone looks when they already know a truth but are waiting for you to speak it. One evening, the rain tapped against the windows, soft and steady. I sat on the couch with a blanket around my shoulders. Jacob was across from me, his book open but his eyes not moving across the page. He looked up and said my name. Rachel. I lifted my head. Yes. He closed the book and set it down. He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. I think it's time we talk. Really talk. The words filled the room. My stomach twisted. I had been holding the truth inside me for years. Now it was asking to be set free. I nodded slowly. Okay. My voice trembled. I took a deep breath, feeling my chest rise and fall. And then I let it out. I told him about Ben, not just the pieces he knew but the whole story. I told him how deeply I had loved, how quickly I had been left, how the loss had cut into me so hard I thought I would never stand again. I told him how I had chosen Jacob because he was steady, safe and kind, but that I had never truly healed before I said yes to him. The words poured out like water breaking through a dam. I told him about the text message, the ghost that had come back, the way I had deleted it but still carried it in my mind. I told him about the panic I felt when he spoke of children, about the coat, about the notebook with baby names that made my hands shake. I wanted to be what you deserve, I whispered, tears sliding down my cheeks. I tried so hard to be that woman. But I'm not. My heart, it isn't whole. And you felt it. I know you did. For a long moment Jacob said nothing. He sat still, his eyes lowered, his hands folded. Then he looked up at me with a face that was both gentle and tired. I already knew, he said softly. The words knocked the air out of me. You knew. He nodded. I've known for a while. I could feel it in the way you smiled, in the way you pulled your hand away just a little too soon, in the way you went quiet when we talked about the future. I didn't want to push you. I thought maybe time would help. Maybe love would be enough. But love has to be free. It can't be begged for. I covered my face with my hands. I'm so sorry. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the floor. I don't blame you. You didn't mean to hurt me. You tried to give what you could. And I tried to believe it was enough. The rain outside grew louder, pressing against the windows. The lamp between us cast a small, warm light. In that light I saw his face clearly, strong, kind, breaking. He stood and walked to the dresser. He pulled out the small envelope he had shown me before and placed it on the table between us again. This is still here, he said. My offer hasn't changed. If you need space, if you need to go, I will help you. I don't want you to feel trapped. Tears blurred my vision. But if I leave, it means this ends. He nodded. His voice was steady, though his eyes were wet. Or it might be what saves us. I don't know. But I can't ask you to keep living half a life. And I can't keep living with a woman who is with me but not fully here. The truth sat heavy between us. No anger. No shouting. Just sorrow. Quiet, honest sorrow. We sat like that for a long time, listening to the rain, neither of us speaking. Finally I whispered, maybe a trial separation. Just for a while. To see if I can heal. To see if I can find my voice again. Jacob nodded. If that's what you need, then that's what we'll do. The days that followed were quiet and slow. We began to sort through the house. I packed clothes into a suitcase. We divided the shelves. Which books were mine, which mugs he would keep, which blanket belonged where. Every small decision cut like glass, but we did it gently, without cruelty. One evening, as I folded the blue blanket we both loved, Jacob touched it and said, "Take it with you." I shook my head. "It's yours too." "Then take it," he said softly. "So I know you'll stay warm." When the day finally came, I carried my suitcase to the door. My heart pounded so loud I thought the neighbors might hear it. Jacob stood by the couch, his hands in his pockets, his shoulders slouched. He didn't try to stop me. He didn't ask me to stay. I turned the knob, opened the door, and felt the cool evening air touch my face. I stepped out onto the porch, my suitcase beside me. Before I closed the door, I looked back one last time. His eyes met mine. They were steady and full of sorrow, but not hate. Never hate. And then he said the words that broke me more than anything else had. I left. And as I closed the door, he said, "Thank you for not lying one last time." The first night in my new apartment was the hardest. The place was small. Just one bedroom, one bathroom, and a tiny kitchen with white walls. There were no family photos on the shelves, no flowers in the yard, No sound of another person moving around. The silence was sharp, not soft. I sat on the floor with my suitcase still closed. The lamp gave off a dim light, and the window showed only the glow of the street lamp outside. I pulled the blue blanket around my shoulders and cried until my chest hurt. For days I felt lost. I walked to work and walked back home. I cooked simple meals, soup, eggs, toast. At night I wrote in a notebook because the pages did not judge me. I wrote, I am broken. I don't know who I am without him. I don't know if I will ever feel whole again. But little by little the silence began to change. On weekends I walked by the river. The water moved steady and calm and I tried to breathe with it. I bought a small plant for the window. I wrote every night even when the words came out messy. I cried less, not because I was healed but because the tears no longer drowned me. They washed me instead. One afternoon a small package arrived at my door. It had no return name. I opened it and found the blue blanket folded neatly, along with a short note in Jacob's handwriting. It said, things grow with care. J. I held the blanket against my chest and sobbed. But this time the tears were softer. They did not break me. They reminded me that even endings can hold kindness. A week later I found something else inside the folds of the blanket. A piece of paper torn from Jacob's notebook. At the top the baby names were scratched out. Below he had written, Rachel's list. Books to read, trails to walk, ways to breathe. My hands trembled as I read it. He had seen me more clearly than I had seen myself. He knew I needed healing, not promises I could not keep. That night I wrote him a letter I never sent. I wrote, thank you for being kind in the ending. Thank you for letting me go with gentleness. Thank you for showing me that even love that breaks can still be love. Some days were better than others. Some mornings I woke up and felt light. Some mornings I woke up and felt like my chest was full of stones. But I learned to accept both. I learned that healing is not a straight line. It is a slow walk with stops and turns. One afternoon I sat in a cafe with a book in my hands. The door opened and a man walked in who looked like Ben. My heart jumped. My hands shook. For a moment I thought about standing, about calling his name. But then I stopped. I watched him order his coffee, laugh at something the barista said, and walk to a table across the room. I realized my body was calm again. My pulse slowed. I did not need to go to him. I did not need to reopen that wound. I turned back to my book. I ordered tea. I sat by the window and let the afternoon light fall on my face. For the first time in a long time I felt okay. Just okay. And that was enough. That evening I texted Ava. I'm okay today. She replied with a heart. Now when I walk by the river I notice the sound of birds. I notice the way the air smells fresh after rain. I notice the way my chest feels when I take a deep breath. Not healed, not perfect, but open. I am still alone. I am still learning. But I am not pretending anymore. I am telling the truth, even if only to myself. And that feels like a kind of freedom I never thought I would have. I keep the note Jacob sent me inside my journal. Sometimes when I feel lost I open it and read the words again. Things grow with care. Maybe I am growing too. Slowly, quietly, but still growing. And if someone out there has ever felt like me, torn between the life that looks perfect and the heart that feels empty, I want them to know this. If you've ever felt like me, you're not alone. Tell me your story in the comments.